Don't say it.
Here's the deal. They only have, for The Last of Us, Part 1 and Part 2 video game. That's it. And so even if you go 3 seasons, right? Unless you go 3 and call it, like you're going to have to start writing new story at some point. I do think, I just saw it in chat, does that give them time to develop Part 3? I think that it does. I don't know who wouldn't want to get on that gravy train, if you know what I'm talking about. And so
I think Naughty Dog
to me.
Wow.
Hey, what's going on, nerds? Welcome back. My name is Bubba, joined with Matt and Kate. We're a couple of the co-founders here at Love Thy Nerd and the host of this year, the Free Play Podcast. And today we are talking all about The Last of Us Season 1.
A lot about. How about that?
Everything
a lot about. Most things. Some things about.
Okay.
About that.
Okay.
So you just want to start from the final scene and work our way backwards, Kate?
Yeah, let's just start there. The final scene.
The end.
No, absolutely not. So there's like a lot to unpack here. So let's just start right away. Thoughts on season 1 of The Last of Us by HBO. What are we thinking?
Like out of 10 or
Am
like?
I thinking?
Okay.
Well,
Okay, I'll start this. It was awesome. No, I'm starting.
Okay.
Too late. You lost your chance.
Yeah, I was going to.
None taken.
I thought it was really well done. Obviously, I feel like when places say, hey, we're going to have a show and it's going to be about this game, you kind of get that sinking feeling in your gut where it's like, oh man, you guys are going to ruin it. And I'm never going to see it the same because it's going to be horrendous. And I at first wasn't convinced about Pedro Pascal's Joel.
Really?
I wasn't convinced at first. So I went into it like really wanting it desperately to be good. And I was excited to see that Neil Druckmann was on the show, like as the executive producer, because he's some kind of prodigy in the gaming space and was behind that whole tale of The Last of Us. And I felt like, okay, this show has a chance because he will be there fighting for the vision and he's the one who created it.
Sure.
And I was very pleasantly surprised. And I think that this sets the bar that it is possible to have a good video game to live action adaptation. So there's no excuse now.
No, I get it.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any necessarily negatives to say about it. So I'm gonna let you guys go first.
No, I don't.
Do I have to have a negative?
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Because I don't either. I think that it stayed true to the game. Probably, I would say 90 to 95% of it. I mean, there were some things they didn't cut. Thinking back to the game, the zombie stuff, like it's there, but it's not all of the game. Like you really are messing with other groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could have they done like more like, oh, we've got to go through this tunnel because it's collapsed here?
Mm-hmm.
Probably, but I didn't mind that. I know that like going into it, I told Erin, it's coming, and she's like, I'm really excited about the story of it. I'm not excited about seeing the zombies. And I was like, I don't know how it's going to be, but I feel like overall, like there were very few bloody scenes in it. And I think it was really just that first episode that I really recall like anything major happening, at least as far as zombies are concerned.
Right. That was a big one.
Right. But I think overall, like it did stay true to the feel of the game. And I think that, like you said, Kate, really, this leaves very little excuse for any other company looking to make a video game adaptation. I'm sorry, movie adaptation or show adaptation of their video games.
Yeah. I liked too the way that they expanded on the story in some ways that, you wouldn't really necessarily need to see and experience in a game, but that would add context and important background if you're watching it in a show type format, like the whole story about Bill and his whole background, and they kind of deviated from what was in the game about that character.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind it. I really liked it because, like you said, the focus was more on the people, and those deviations really brought the attention to the people instead of, oh my gosh, look at these zombies and how crazy that is. Wow. They were very purposeful and played a role in kind of building out that story. So I think a lot of people got to experience that story that would have never experienced it in any other way, because a lot of people aren't going to sit there and play. How long was The Last of Us? Like 18 hours?
18 to 25 to 30.
They're not going to sit there and do that, but they'll watch the show.
Game,
and it's a really incredible story that I think everybody should, if you're into that sort of thing.
I think the thing that the biggest change that made sense to me, at least as far as the show was concerned, is how they portrayed the virus, because in the game you see like spores floating around, and I know that they decided not to go for that because it'd be a constant like masks on, masks off. It would be harder to see on the screen, which I'm fine with a fungus coming out of your mouth.
I know, me too. Actually,
not you two, but other people.
No.
Let's not knock it before we try it. Okay. I think that like I'm okay with the any changes that they made from the original story, right? Because here's why. I'm not just blindly going in before they start the show and doing, hey, change anything you want. Just use the Last of Us title and it's the milkshake that brings all the boys to the yard.
Right.
But they would go through every single episode. There was, I think, IGN and several other news outlets would say, hey, here's a shot for shot of what it looked like in the show and what it looked like in the video game. And the crazy thing was that, I mean, how well it lined up. And so they were doing their hardest to stay true in a lot of really important areas to what the game was, while at the same time, and this is what we talk about with Marvel movies and comics, right? Making it different enough that even people who do know the story it still feels fresh to them, right?
Yes.
And we've talked about this ad nauseum on this podcast, in person, on Church Nerds, I know for sure, about what I feel to be a very important aspect of storytelling, which is that fresh feeling, right? Like if it's the same exact thing as what you read in the book, is that really what you wanted? Like, is it really what you wanted? Because you'll still find something, well, that actually that person's eyebrows were bushier. Like you're going to find the stupidest things to be like concerned about, right? So being able to say, hey, here is shot for shot stuff, but also what if in an alternate dimension and a different timeline here, what if this happened this way? Slight variations, right? We're still staying true, right? Still staying true to things. I remember when The Walking Dead came out and it came to the episode where, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the Carl's dad's name? The main character, the whole freaking show, basically.
Andrew.
No.
Carl's dad.
Carl's dad. Mr. Carl's dad.
That's his name, isn't it?
I can't think of his name right now either.
No, it's not Andrew. He was supposed to die. Like that. The episode was like he got pierced with, and Rick. There we go. Thank you, Anna.
Is he played by a guy named Andrew?
Yeah. Rick and Richard Grimes. He was supposed to die in the episode. There was the episode where he was supposed to like lose his hand, and like those moments came and went, but then ultimately happened in the show. Like both of them did. And so I liked that because it kept somebody who knew what was happening in the story kind of engaged in guessing. And I think that doing stuff like that in the HBO adaptation was necessary, absolutely necessary. And what it does for me is it makes me want to go back and play The Last of Us, which I haven't done. I've not finished it. And so
you
I'm
need
here for this.
part 2. It's been remastered, redone, special for you.
I've seen that.
So then the thought going forward is, and we can't really get super into this because Bubba, you have not finished 1 and you have not played 2.
Don't worry about me.
Are there any spoiler-free guesses as to the next season? Because The Last of Us Part 2 is very complicated in the way that it tells a story.
Yeah.
So are you asking me?
Well, you could say what you want to say.
All right,
just don't spoil it.
Oh, yeah.
I will say this, that there is a very specific character that was in season 1 that is not in any of the marketing for season 2. And I expected that. I expected that to be. I felt like they were kind of leading up to that, right? Like they were taking me on a journey, and then it didn't happen. And so, I'm curious as to where that's going to go, how that's going to move forward in season 2. And it's an important thing. I know that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I know that season 2 got a lot of flack. Part 2
It did.
got a lot of flack. But I don't know. Maybe I would actually like really enjoy it. They're going to draw it out over 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
It's
2 seasons for part 2,
which is, yeah.
There's a lot going on.
And I'm here for it.
There's a lot. So I think there's longevity in that, and trying to get that right. And it's like, oh man, people were really worked up about part 2. What is that going to look like in this context? I have no idea, but looking at how they've kind of made some story changes in this first season, I don't know. It all translates differently to this live action. So I'm curious to see how they pull that off, and I wish them the best of luck.
I'm not worried about it, because like you look at the actors that are in it, okay, and they're really not hitching their wagon to anybody. I mean, a lot of this stuff happened again. The closest parallel that I have here is The Walking Dead. And so you had characters that didn't exist or weren't a super big deal in that show, or in the comic, I would say, the graphic novel, that stuck around for a very long time because they were like, but Daryl, right? Like, we got to have Daryl. And so, and I'm not super mad about that, but they kind of let this new adaptation shape the story moving forward. And so a lot of things are really different at certain points. It doesn't really feel like they're doing that with The Last of Us.
Not
you
yet,
know what
anyways.
I mean?
Not yet.
Not yet, but
I think they'll probably. I've read some things. They said it's going to be different. So I'm wondering if they just prolong certain situations. I'm trying not to spoil here.
no, don't say anymore.
Here's the deal. They only have, for The Last of Us, part 1 and part 2 video game. That's it. And so even if you go 3 seasons, right? Unless you go 3 and call it, like, you're going to have to start writing new story at some point. I do think, I just saw in chat, does that give them time to develop part 3? I think that it does. I don't know who wouldn't want to get on that gravy train, if you know what I'm talking about. And so
I think
makes
Naughty
sense
Dog,
to me.
They said, so there was some interviews with Neil Druckmann where they were saying, okay, what about The Last of Us Part 3? Are you guys going to do it? When is it coming out? That blah, 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 blah. And he said that they've chosen their next game to develop, but he does not confirm a Last of Us Part 3. Here's his quote from him: "Is all I can say is that we are already into our next project, and the decision has already been made. I can't say what it is, but that is the process we went through. There was a lot of consideration of different things, and we picked the thing we were the most excited for."
Uncharted 5.
No,
Yeah, probably.
take that how you will.
Even if the next project is not,
they could still make a return.
that it's not, Last of Us Part 3. Here's the thing.
I don't think
it
they
continues.
should, for the record.
Kate, here's the thing though. I mean, with all of the trend moving up with Last of Us, it increased, the show increased in like watch, like viewership, up. Okay. Almost across every single episode, it increased viewer count.
Yeah.
Starting off as the like highest premiere that HBO has ever had, right? So it started at the top and then moved its way up from there. Then it skyrocketed sales for the dadgum video games.
Yeah.
I don't see why anybody's going to go, no, we have to protect our artistic,
No, I genuinely do not think they will do a part 3, at least in the next 5 years. I don't think they will.
Too strong. It's too strong.
Do you think that they'll do what they did with Walking Dead, Kate, where they do like a fear of the Walking Dead, and they'll do like in the vein of...
I think they'll do their
I think they'll try.
multiplayer. I think they'll do their multiplayer that's already in progress of The Last of Us. I think they will have that come out, and I honestly think they will call it a day and say we will do seasons up through season 3. And yeah, we might lose money, but that's the end of the day for the story. We're not going to push it anymore and risk it becoming the cheesy, corny video game thing that just wants to survive when it's on its last legs.
Tell them to do Red Dead next.
Because think of it this way. Yes, I would love for
well,
to
they
have
already
a Red
did. It was
Dead.
Hell on Wheels. We talked about this.
No, it wasn't.
No.
No. Season 2 and 3. So let's say in development, they will have another 2 years before season 2 comes out. So what year are we in? 2023. So 2020, 2025,
it yet,
and then 2027. So
unless they film at the same time, they release in the year, like a year apart.
No way, absolutely not.
If they do it Lord of the Rings style,
maybe. That's a long time to keep up Last of Us hype to create something after that.
I mean, but is it though? Like, here's the thing.
I think so.
Here's the thing though. Like, people are going to know and feel and understand what's going on. Case in point, right? Ted Lasso. It'd been a hot minute since we had a Ted Lasso episode, but when it came out, those of us that were jazzed about Ted Lasso are like, "Oh, give me more of it. What's the next part?"
Yeah, I guess.
Now, after a while, it will wane because that's how it works. Okay, let's just be real. It worked the same way with Game of Thrones. It really did. Game of Thrones was freaking hot, and then it plateaued, and then it dipped. And everybody's like, Game of Thrones sucked in the last season, blah, blah, this, all that stuff. Did that stop them, Kate, from doing House of Dragons?
No. But that's not The Last of Us Part 3. That's like a whole other different thing. That's a story that took place in the same universe.
The spinoff, though. The spinoff, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, when Matt was saying, hey, do you think they'll do a spinoff? Like, that was HBO.
Maybe.
Last of Us is HBO. And Sony, we have to remember, Sony is trying really hard right now to develop their silver screen, big screen, arm of Sony Entertainment, based solely off of their IPs that they have in the video game world.
I think they could do better. I think
assume Horizon Zero's next.
It won't be.
Horizon.
It's too hard. It's too hard.
Destiny.
I want to see your
Uncharted.
thoughts on where a part 3 could go, but after you finish.
I'll have to beat it. Yeah, I'll have to
beat
it.
Yeah, because that's where I'm hung up on it.
I think all the characters that have died back from the dead.
No.
In space.
Like as zombies.
You have your thoughts. So lastly,
we find out that the clickers are the good guys the whole time.
I knew it. They're just waiting to hug people. They just wanted to hug.
We were kind of talking about it just now, but the future of turning video game IPs into these adaptations. Next up on the list that's already in production is God of War on Amazon Prime.
Send it.
And
that's an easy one.
I hope and pray for them. We need to start praying for them every day. They need it.
I'm gonna be real with you. And this is a hot take for me. I'm worried about it on Amazon Prime. What I want is hey, Sony, just
give everything to HBO.
Full send with HBO.
Well, HBO only. Why would you do that? Not
money.
I mean, how? Maybe HBO didn't want to do
stacks on stacks on stacks.
Maybe HBO only wanted to do one Sony IP at a time in case The Last of Us flopped.
I freaking doubt it.
That's my biggest hang up here is with Amazon Prime. I mean,
I will say though, I'm sorry to cut you off, Kate. I will say that I think that this is like the purest, people trying to walk the line. I think that it went really pretty well. I kind of hesitated there for a second with Lord of the Rings. I think that it went pretty well, and I'm excited. And I think because of that, now there's talks about what the next phase of that is. Maybe not just with Amazon, but they're like, hey, there's still buzz around this. Hey, Peter Jackson, would you come back and do more Lord of the Rings stuff? Like there's hope for that in the future. And so I have to believe that HBO is like right now. I mean, even months ago, whenever the first episode dropped, right? A couple months ago of Last of Us, and they saw it spike, they were like, hello, Mr. Sony. We would like to take absolutely everything you have.
Yeah, what else you got?
I bet they talked exclusives, but I think it was the money that talked. Oh yeah, Banjo-Kazooie.
I think the secret sauce for The Last of Us being as successful as it was Neil Druckmann. Not everybody has a Neil Druckmann with them. Like for God of War, you had Cory Barlog that did the 2018, and then he stepped down for Ragnarok. So who's doing this?
Oh, well, that's a good point.
It's me.
Who's doing it?
Well, what God of War are they doing? Are they doing the old ones? Or are they doing?
I don't know. They didn't say.
With Atreus.
I have got to throw my hat in the ring here and cast my vote for just lose everything before this new God of War stuff. Before this one and the last one. You can take all of that because it does, right? It takes all of the history of God of War.
Yeah.
Matt, you look so hesitant. What's the matter?
Well, I think they would probably have to do a flashback episode, or they would have to have flashbacks.
Well, he needs an origin story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He needs his origin story. But even then, like, you could start it just the same way they started like God of War, the last one. I'm even struggling to give it a name. It's just God of War. They even knew because they went back to just calling it God of War. Flat.
A restart for the.
So you go back and you just use that as the reboot. And even I'm trying to even remember. I think it was just through dialogue that we got, like, if you'd never played a God of War game before in your life.
There were a couple things. One was a
artistic animation thing on a wall or something like that.
There was some stuff and like that, so it would have to be done tactfully.
But it allowed people to just kind of jump in. I think that through the medium of TV or movies or whatever, you could do a lot way cooler stuff, right? Like you can really draw somebody back and invite them into his story several episodes down the line.
Yeah, right? They'd have to do a longer season than The Last of Us, like maybe 12, at least 12 episodes instead of 9. I think for God of War.
They're not doing that anymore. Like gone are the days of 12 to 20 to 24 episodes.
12 is barely anything.
And now it's 8. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's because these episodes cost like $30 million a piece to make.
Andor did many episodes.
Sounds like a personal problem.
How many episodes did Andor do?
15.
Really?
Way more than I thought there was going to be.
Let's normalize that. But at what point, think about it. If Obi-Wan was that many episodes, we all would have probably boycotted Obi-Wan. Because that.
Well, how many episodes do you need to tell a story?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that they do it really well. And so I'm here for it. I would really love to see God of War. I know we got to wrap this segment here. I'd really love to see God of War. I just so absolutely would. I'd like to see, I don't know how this would work. I'd like to see a Spider-Man TV series. Don't give me a movie.
You are
plenty of it. Well, okay, but not with my boy Nick Cage, and I'm super sad about it. I would also like to see Horizon. I would love to see that. I think that that's something that could work really, really well. It's weird enough to just kind of work. Red Dead, absolutely. Absolutely. Fallout's a tough one. Because it is a Microsoft-owned property through Bethesda.
Well, they can do it anyway. How about they just do it anyways?
They don't have a good track record just yet. Halo, I'm looking at you. That bombed. Yeah. Absolutely bombed. And so I'm kind of leaning into Sony in this area and just kind of letting them do their thing. I think that if Microsoft were smart, they would license out to Sony some of these things so that they can make them into. Yeah. Or they just go the Disney route. They go the Disney route and they bring in people to do it. They don't try to do that kind of stuff with any kind of in-house. I don't know. There's a lot of things. A lot of things.
Lots of potential, hopefully.
Yeah.
They've
been filming a Fallout series. Amazon is doing it. Silver, I need to see something on it. I don't need to hear the talk about it. I need to see it.
Some evidence that it's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think that's going to do it for this segment of Free Play. Hope you guys have enjoyed the things that you've been watching. If you haven't watched The Last of Us and you are able to do it, there are a lot of things in it that might trigger some people. And so if it's not for you, don't worry about it.
It's all right.
Move on to the next thing. Go watch Ted Lasso. But